Okay, so if you didn't know, I'm a big fan of Tron Legacy, and I love the atmosphere of the world as well as just everything about it, plus the additional spin off media, such as the short lived TV show Tron Uprising and the video game tie in to Legacy titled Tron Evolution. Now, all three of those medias show a specific moment from Legacy in a different perspective. That being the moment CLU betrayed Tron and Flynn and took over the grid. So, first I'm going to show you guys, just a sort of cut up, very quick, summarized version of what happened in each of those versions of events, and then give a brief explainer to how it all connects. So, first we have now that you've seen all three versions of CLU's betrayal play out, you're probably wondering, how can those all be the same if there's a lot of differences in dialogue and the amount of participants involved in the event? To put simply, I know it's confusing, but they all are the same. It has to do with something called the Rashomon effect, which is a term coined from the movie Rashomon, where it's basically, the idea of it is the same story told from multiple perspectives. Now, in the case of Legacy, this is Flynn's flashback as he's explaining it to Sam and Cora, meaning that the way that the three of them are visualizing this event, not remembering, visualizing, is how it's presented to us in the movie. In Tron Evolution, you're playing as a character named Anon, and you're sort of watching the events as they were shown in Legacy from an outsider's perspective. So, given that the movie and game were released within the same time window, it would make sense that the game's interpretation would have to follow along with the movie's as closely as possible. And the easiest explanation for Tron Uprising, which was a flashback in Scars Part 1, which counts as both Dyson and Tron's perspective, is simply that certain aspects of it were changed just for the sake of working with the assets that they had for the show, and additionally, there are parts in that flashback that I believe are set after moments we see in Flynn's flashback, as is the case with the exchange between TRON and CLU in the Uprising flashback. I believe that that moment takes place after the moment we see in Flynn's flashback where TRON gets struck in the chest, simply for the reasons of Dyson's involvement and also just the fact that it's never acknowledged whether or not Flynn was shown escaping in that moment. Because if it were meant to be the same moment, then there would have been some acknowledgement that on the development team's part, or I guess the writers, I should say. Goodness, I'm mixing up all my terms today. The writers would have done the scene to acknowledge that, yes, this is supposed to be the same moment that we saw in Flynn's flashback, but given that there was no indication of that being the case, we can conclude that it was in fact taking place after Flynn's flashback. So, as for the whole guard number conundrum, because in Legacy and Evolution, there's 4, but in Uprising, there's very clearly 8. That can be chalked up to the people working on Uprising wanting to add a little more dramatic flair to the moment by making it seem like, TRON had more work cut out for him by having to take on 8 programs instead of just 4. And also kind of backtracking to smaller things like inconsistent dialogue for all 3, as well as CLU and Flynn basically sharing the same model in the Uprising scene. That can just be chalked up to writer's interpretation, and also just, in the case of the reused models, saving money on assets. And yeah, I believe that just about covers everything. So, the timeline of CLU's Betrayal goes a little something like this. It starts with that same exchange of Flynn and CLU talking about creating the perfect system, then goes into CLU's guards coming out and surrounding TRON and Flynn. The number varying depending on who's witnessing the events. In the case of Flynn and Anon, they only witness or recall seeing 4 guards. In the case of TRON and Dyson, there were about 8. TRON tells Flynn to run and begins to fight the guards while Flynn tries to escape. CLU throws Flynn to the ground before TRON comes in, tackling CLU to the ground. Flynn escapes, but not before witnessing CLU drive his identity disc into TRON's chest. After Flynn leaves, TRON lays on the ground defeated, telling CLU that he hasn't won just yet because Flynn is still out there. And we get the rest of that exchange between them. Dyson comes out of the shadows, tells TRON that Flynn betrayed all of them, and CLU once again strikes TRON in the chest. End of flashback. Now, I hope that's helped sort of explain things, and I really hope that you've come out of this with a better understanding of how all of these events tie in together. As always, like and subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.